You know, one of the questions you get asked quite often when you run a gun channel is, how do I sight in my EDC handgun? So today I want to take a second and address that question and talk about how most people, even the professionals, and sometimes especially the professionals, get it completely wrong. Hey everybody, Yankee here. As I was saying, one of the questions we get all the time is, how do I sight in my EDC handgun? And that question in itself isn't stupid or anything. I mean, it's very important. That's something you gotta do. You wanna sight in your gun. You wanna make sure it's accurate. But a lot of people, especially a lot of professionals, emphasize the wrong thing. They get things kind of backwards. And that's when they start, emphasizing elevation. And you notice people kind of falling for this when they ask you all the time, well, what distance should I sight in my carry gun? Should I do it at 15 yards because most self-defenses are going to be close range? Should I do it at 30 yards in case I need to stop a threat early? And you got professionals telling people this, and you got them even saying things like, never sight beyond 30 yards with your carry gun because you're not going to be engaging in distances that far away. So just don't do it. And that's actually stupid and doesn't make sense. I find it really funny a lot of times when people will ask you, what distance should I sight my handgun in at? And they've got combat sights on their guns. Like they got a Glock or a P320 that just has regular driftable left and right rear sight. And with those sights, you can't adjust for elevation. So the question is moot because that plane on the top of the sights stays the same. No matter how you adjust them, you're just adjusting for left and right. You're making sure your gun shoots true. And when you're doing that, when you're just getting your gun to shoot straight, well, it doesn't matter really what distance you're doing that at. Just do it at a reasonable distance because straight is straight. If you're getting it to fire along the lines of that barrel and, just right straight out to your target, that's all that matters. And that does not change with distance. Unless you're in like really windy conditions and you're shooting so far away that the bullet's being blown off target, not going to be a factor. Now, usually when you use a handgun like this up close, you're not going to use sights anyway. You're just going to pull and shoot. But you do want to make sure it's shooting very straight as possible, because the further that target gets away from you, any bit of off on the back sight means you're going to shoot to the left or you're going to shoot to the right if you got it adjusted the other way wrong. So you want to shoot as straight as possible. I would be willing to bet $1 of my own, well, not hard-earned, but earned money, that most people miss left and right. They don't miss up or down, so elevation's not the problem. It's not shooting their gun straight, not getting their sights properly aligned, or not having them properly aligned. So that's what you want to do first. As long as your gun is shooting straight, that's the most important thing. Now, let's deal with elevation. I'm not saying elevation doesn't matter, because elevation does matter, especially if you're hunting or something like that. If you're shooting at 150 yards, like from your tree to where the game is usually going to be is 150 yards, and you know that, hey, my bullet starts to drop a little bit at 150 yards, or there's always a constant wind from this side, so it's a little off to the left, or whatever, you're going to want to sight your gun to where it's right on to where your target's going to be. Because you're taking long-range shots, there's going to be a lot of things that affect the travel of that bullet, mostly gravity and air friction. So you take that into account, because you don't want to have to guess every time you shoot. You want it to be on at the distance you usually hunt at. So it makes a lot of difference there. But when you're engaging in self-defense, doesn't make a lot of difference. Like I said, on most guns, you're not even going to be able to adjust it. But let's say you got a gun where you can adjust it. You've got the ability to wind up and wind down your rear sight. You can change the elevation to where you shoot the gun up or down. Once you got side to side right, now you want to get your up and down. Well, it does matter in this case if you want to get the gun shooting as accurately as possible. But you don't have to know what range am I going to engage targets in. It's very unlikely you're going to know that anyway. Life isn't that predictable. So what you need to know is, how does your ammo perform? How does this gun with this ammo perform? This is a gun you're going to trust your life to, so you want to be as accurate as possible with it. So you need to know things like, I'm carrying a 9mm with a 4-inch barrel, and it is spear gold dot, and I know from testing and my own testing, manufacturer testing, etc., that this round travels a minimum of 45 yards before it's affected by friction or gravity. It's not going to be affected. I'm not shooting far enough that gravity is going to be a thing or wind's going to be a thing as long as I'm within 45 yards. Well, then anywhere you sight that gun from 45 yards into 10 yards is going to be the same, because once it exits that barrel, it's not changing its trajectory for 45 yards. That's the golden zone. That's the flat, true zone right there. If you sight in that area, your round is going to go flat and true out of your barrel, and you've got it aligned to where it shoots straight, so it's going to go straight and level. So as long as you control your gun and you point it properly, that bullet is not going to alter in that range. So you sight anywhere in that range. And I always like to say, if it's at 45 yards it starts to drop, well, I'll sight to 40. You know, might as well sight as far out as possible while not having any change up close. And like I said, if you're real close, you're probably not going to use your sights, period. But that's just how it works. Now, say you got a revolver with a 4-inch barrel and you're shooting Underwood 357 Magnums, and you know they travel at least 60 yards. And I'm making these numbers up. Don't hold me on these numbers. I'm just giving you examples here. Let's say you know it travels 60 yards before it starts to alter its trajectory because of gravity or air friction, whatever. Then I sight anywhere from, say, 55 yards in just to give myself a little wiggle room. That's your golden zone on that. That's what matters. You don't have to play this guessing game of where am I going to actually have to shoot someone, or where am I actually going to have to defend myself from. You just have to know how your bullet travels. The caliber you chose, the gun you use, the bullets you use, and most brands are going to be very similar in self-defense loads of, 9mm, you're going to usually be good up to this, and 357 is going to be usually straight and true up to this. So all you got to do is know that. And if you know that, you'll get your gun shooting straight, because that's the first thing you need to do. And you'll have your gun sighted perfectly for ranges beyond what you'll probably ever engage in self-defense. And you'll be fine anywhere in that line, anywhere along that chart there of distance, you'll be fine until you reach that point where it starts to drop. And if you have to shoot at something outside that, well, then you have to know how much your bullet drops, like every 10 yards. And then just raise your barrel slightly. But that's for you to know. You have to figure that out yourself. And all that information is given to you by most ammo manufacturers. So it's not hard. Like I said, you're probably never going to have to shoot beyond that range. So just get your gun set to where it shoots, as I said, straight and as level as it can be to a certain area, and then you're fine. Because now you're level and you're straight, and as long as you control your gun, you're fine at any range from the end of your barrel out to the maximum flat range of that bullet, so you are set. Please hit that like button and share this video on whatever social media you have. Since this is a restricted channel, you're the only chance we have to overcome YouTube's anti-2A bias and discrimination.